And then you can go so far down into despair when you can't come up with a way to move through what you're going through.
Yeah.
And then you just end up in a stuckness, because the dark night of the soul is like a stuckness. It's in a dark place. It's like you went down into a hole, you kept going deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you can't get out. And
can't get out.
You're faced with, man,
Because when you get to a point where you don't want to do something anymore, then you'll give it up.
That's that dark night of the soul.
Yeah, because you don't want to. You're at the end of that. It's that behavior. It's like I'm tired.
No more.
When you get tired, that's when the shift happens.
Absolutely.
So the only way that you can have a new life, become a new creation, become a higher vision of yourself or greater version of yourself, is that you have to give certain things up.
Yeah, try out the exercise, try out the rituals.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of stuff sounds like it's airy-fairy, and I've thought about it like that too, like some woo-woo stuff. Yeah. But then, many years ago, I walked through these different processes, and it actually works.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dr. K Speaks. We have entered a new dimension in time. We are being called to evolve, transform. Join us.
Welcome, everybody. We are back for another whole month of episodes of Elevation Talks, right?
Yes.
And for this particular video right now, we're going to talk about the dark night of the soul. When Goddess and I was sitting here and working on what we were going to talk about, she just started getting deep into it. So I said, hold on. Let's just save this for the video. So we're just going to jump right in and talk about the dark night of the soul. So set it up, Goddess, and let people know what the dark night of the soul is and what are some of the things that comes before the dark night of the soul. And we got to talk about how will people know when they're in the dark night of the soul, because a lot of people are probably in it and they don't even know what that is.
Yeah. The dark night of the soul, happens when you reach a point in your life when you're in so much pain, emotional, anger, hurt, pain,
sadness.
Yeah, and you don't have any answers.
Guilt, shame.
Yes. It's like your emotional body is full and you just feel like you don't want to be here anymore.
Right.
You don't want to do this thing called life. I remember going through that. When I was a child, I had a relationship with God. And then when I reached my teens, I didn't anymore. I start just focusing on the outside world. I thought I had things figured out. And a lot of us do. Mm-hmm. We think, I can do this thing called life. I got to figure it out.
Yes.
Life is like this. Life is like that. And then you realize you don't have it figured out.
That's when you slip on a banana peel and you have a hard time getting back up. Then you realize that, wow, I don't have it figured out in the way that I thought I had it figured out. And then you can go so far down into despair when you can't come up with a way to move through what you're going through.
Yeah.
And then you just end up in a stuckness, because the dark night of the soul is like a stuckness. It's in a dark place. It's like you went down into a hole, you kept going deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you can't get out. And
you can't get out.
You're faced with, man.
You can't think your way out of it. You just can't. You can't fix it. You can't fix your life anymore. And when that happens, I think, you just feel like, I don't want to be here. But what happens is that's when you drop to your knees and you ask the Creator to help you. And at that point, you're open. You're open into listening. You're open to divine guidance. And in that moment is when you begin to hear. You begin to hear and feel the presence of the Creator. And you begin to see the light. You begin to get messages on what to do.
Absolutely. So I thought of this funny story. I just really want to share it. There's some friends of mine, they live in California, and they had moved to one of the islands. I forgot one of the islands, and set up a restaurant there. So then they had the restaurant going, and the woman, she was very spiritual. She went to a Unity church, and then the guy, he was atheist. He didn't believe in God, but he
Mhm.
loved his wife. And so they were doing their thing on the island, had the restaurant. The restaurant was thriving, and then a dang on hurricane came.
Ooh.
Right. And so they were in their house at the time when the hurricane came, and they went into the bathroom, and then they said that they had a mattress. They were in the tub together and had a mattress thrown over them. And they said that hurricane sounded like a train coming through.
Ooh.
The train was coming through, and it was louder, and it felt like it was taking some stuff off of the roof.
Oh my goodness.
And he was so scared. And then his wife started praying. And guess what?
What?
He started praying too.
See.
Dark night of the soul can happen like that.
Wow, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. When you have that sincere prayer and you're open to divine guidance, that's when the shift happens in your life.
Absolutely. And one of the things that can have you open to that divine guidance is when you have exhausted everything that you can possibly think of. When you have exhausted everything. I want to share another quick story because it speaks right to it. I can remember when my relationship with God wasn't strong, and it was during the time when I had left my ex-husband, and I had my 2 kids, and I had all 3 of them at that time, and the youngest one was a baby. And my ex-husband, he was talking about how he was going to drive by the house and he was going to shoot up the house. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? What am I supposed to do with this? You know, nobody prepared me for what to do with that.
Right.
And I was sitting in the house playing with the kids on the floor, blinds closed, because I was really afraid that he was going to do it. And that's when I ended up going to God. That was one of the really big reasons, because it's like, where do I go from here? I mean, my mother taught me how to make my dollar holler. You know, she taught me some things, right? But where do I go from here? Right. So have you ever gone through something in your life and then you got hit really, really, really hard with something, and then you did not know what to do? When that kind of stuff happens and you have nowhere else to turn because nobody can really help you, if you really open your heart to the Creator will help you. And you don't have to do any formal prayers. I remember a friend of mine, she was telling me, you know, you don't have to do a formal prayer.
I just said, help me.
Yes. She said, just open your heart and talk to God, and God knows, right? And so you don't have to do a formal prayer. You could just say, God, it's me. You know, I don't know if you're listening, but I hope you are. And I really need you because this is going on and that's going on. And the Creator already knows what's going on. You know, but now since you're asking for help, you're seeking that assistance, then that divine guidance is going to show up in your life in one way or another.
And I think what happened for me when I prayed, I said, God, I want to feel peace, because my soul was not at peace because all the things I was feeling. And I said, I just want to feel love. You know, I knew I was loved, but I couldn't feel it because I had so much pain and hurt that I was carrying for years, had accumulated in my emotional body. And it was a voice that was talking to me. It was in my thoughts. It was my voice. It sounded like my voice, but it wasn't my voice because they wasn't my thoughts. The thoughts that were coming were not my thoughts. And the voice said, on the other side of the pain is the peace. On the other side of the pain is the love. And what that meant for me was that I had to let go of the hurt and pain, you know, which was from judgments I had about myself, about my life, that I had to move through those things and get to the other side and feel the peace. So I had to sit with those things that happened and reinterpret them, you know, rewire my brain, reinterpret them, let God show me how to reinterpret those things that happen and see them in a higher light so I can have that release, that I can let it go.
And a good way to reinterpret something from a higher light, what that means is that a situation happened, and when the situation happens, then we all come up with what just happened and why it happened. But now if you're interpreting that, because that's what interpretation is, when you put some meaning on a situation, because 5 people can witness one thing and then they all walk away with a different interpretation of what happened, right? Because we interpret things through the lenses of our eyes, right? So it's like, if I'm looking at a situation and I'm seeing it from the lenses of my eyes, which consists of my belief systems, the things that I've experienced in the past, all of those are going to have an impact on how I perceive the situation, right? So the same thing with you, whatever it is that you've gone through in the past, and however your brain is wired right now. When you interpret something, then you're going to interpret it from that perspective of your beliefs. Right now, to reinterpret your past, to rewire your brain, just like I wrote about, got my book over here, just like I wrote about in my book, I Rewired My Brain, My Journey to Freedom. I talk about how to reinterpret a situation. To reinterpret it from a higher light means that when you now perceive it, the meaning that you placed on it is going to give you the peace. When you talked about the peace, is going to give you peace, because you're going to say, for example, when my mother used to treat me bad and then I became an adult and I was like, oh, she didn't love me, right? When I went on my spiritual journey consciously and started learning and growing, what I realized is that my mother showed up in the world as a baby just like I did, innocent baby. And because of the things that she went through in her life, it contributed to her being the way that she did. She was not loved and valued. She didn't love and value herself, but her love language to me and my sister was to buy us things. So that's what she offered. But then she was mentally and emotionally abusive, right? So now when I reinterpreted that from a higher space, I looked at all of those factors, right? And then I realized that she was doing the best that she knew to do given what she had to work with consciously, right? But she loved in the way that she knew how. So when I reinterpreted it from that higher light, then now I have no ill will towards her. I have that peace because I understand now from that higher perspective why she did the things that she did. Now, is it an excuse for what she did? No, but I'm not talking about excuse.
Right.
I'm not talking about right or wrong. I'm talking about getting to the peace. And when you want to get to the peace, you got to let go of what's right and what's wrong. And look at things from that higher perspective. If you don't know how to see it from a higher perspective, you can ask God how to see it from a higher perspective. If you don't have that relationship with God yet to where you can hear God, you can use a fictitious character on TV, somebody that you watch on a regular basis. If it's a series and you say, I like the way that person thinks, or if it's a movie, I like the way that person thinks. So now when you look at that situation, you can ask yourself, how would that person look at this situation? You know, or maybe you had a wise grandmother or a godmother or an auntie or a teacher who was always on some positive stuff, right?
That's what that would Jesus do. That's what that's about.
Yeah.
When people say, "What would Jesus?"
Same thing. So reinterpreting it from the perspective of
higher
Jesus.
Perspective.
So that's the higher perspective. The higher perspective means that if you're looking at it from a perspective that's causing you some anger, some pain, any type of emotional distress, anger, sadness, worry, anxiety, fear, doubt, shame, guilt. Higher means peace, you know, love, you know, even calm, right? Because you might not be able to make that quantum jump from all of that emotional pain to the big time love. But if you could just get some understanding of the situation, you know, then that's going to help, because now the understanding is going to give you a sense of calm. And then you'll end up moving into that space of peace if you want it.
Yes. When I first awakened to the spiritual self and began to, you know, connect with the Creator, I have a stone on my, I call it the first eye, but some people call it the third eye. And that was my commitment from that day on, to see things through the eyes of God. And so when something is causing me pain, to me, it means that I'm looking at it wrong. And so what I say to God is, let me see this situation through your eyes. And then all of a sudden I'm able to see it. You know, I'll have a vision, or God will say something to me, and then I'll see it from a different space. So that relationships allows me to expand my consciousness. It allows me to expand my perception of this illusion we call reality.
Absolutely.
And so I'm able to have peace because I see it differently now.
There's another strategy, because rituals are really important. Rituals can really help us to surrender things, or rituals can really help us to move through whatever we need to move through. That's why in churches they have all kind of rituals where you know, put your hands together, or you get on your knees and pray, or for people that are Catholic, they use the rosary. All these things are rituals because it gives you that mind, body, spirit connection when you're doing things. So here's a ritual that you can use if you want to surrender something. If it's something that's in your life and you're worried about it, and you just can't let it go, or maybe you're angry about it, you got some distress about the situation, then write on a piece of paper, I am surrendering these things to God or to the Creator or to the Holy Spirit or to the universe, like whatever your belief is, right? Whatever that higher power is that is beyond, this worldly realm, right? So you write down, I will surrender these things to, and then you fill in your blank. And then you write down, I will surrender my anger towards my mother. I will surrender my fear about getting a new job, or I will surrender my fear of getting out of this toxic relationship and being alone for a while. Whatever the case may be, identify the things in your life that are causing you distress, and then write those things down on the list. Maybe start out with maybe about 5 things. And then here's what you do. You got to wait until you're in a space to where you're not going to be interrupted and you're not going to be quiet, because it's going to be a very soulful experience, this ritual. So then once the conditions are set to where you're not going to be interrupted, then you can get that piece of paper and then you say out loud, I am surrendering these things to the higher power, or whatever your fill in the blank is. And then you say, I am surrendering my worries about being alone once I leave this relationship. I am surrendering my anger towards my ex-husband or my ex-wife. I am surrendering my guilt about this situation, right? And then after you say those things that you're surrendering, then what you can do is a couple of things. You can walk up to a garbage can, and after you say all of that, ball it up, and then throw it in the garbage can and turn your back on it and walk away. And another thing you could do is the burning bowl.
Yes.
You can say all of that, and then you can maybe set your fire outside, start a fire outside. You can have a big bowl, or if you got a fire pit, you could do it too. But what you're going to do is go through that same ritual, and then you can put your paper in the fire once you surrender it, and rather than turning your back on it, this time I want you to watch it just kind of burn and disintegrate, and then just imagine that all of that distress, dis-ease about those particular situations are just leaving you and going up in flames. And then when those thoughts come back to you, because they will, they get on my nerves, or I'm going to be alone, I'm scared, or whatever. Then when they come back, say, nope, I surrendered that already. I surrendered that. Every time those thoughts pop into your head, say, I surrendered that. I surrendered that. I surrendered that. Because if you focus on those thoughts, now you're going to be feeding it. You're going to be giving it power. So you don't want to give it power. You just want to focus on you surrender it. Because the more you say it, then what's going to happen is the neurons, the nerve cells in your brain are going to fire together. And then eventually they're going to wire together. And then you will have rewired your brain about surrendering that situation. And when that happens, when the thoughts pop into your head, then you're going to have a whole different perspective. And along the way, until you get that whole different perspective, now your mind is going to be open to these other perspectives that are just going to start showing up for you. And you try on each one to see how it feels. And then you check in to see how you feel as a result of thinking about it in that way. And you'll know when you get to your higher perspective. Somebody else's higher perspective might not be your higher perspective. You might have to take baby steps.
The greatest power that we have is the power to choose.
Yes.
And so in each moment you choose.
Yes.
Like you were saying, you can choose to hold on to that anger.
Yes.
Or you could choose to let it go.
Yes.
So the only way that you can have a new life, become a new creation, become a higher vision of yourself or greater version of yourself, is that you have to give certain things up.
Yes.
And so the things that are causing you to be not at peace,
give them up, surrender them.
Surrender.
And it's a choice.
So surrender.
Yes.
Surrender.
Yeah, try out the exercise, try out the rituals.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of stuff sounds like it's airy-fairy, and I've thought about it like that too, like some woo-woo stuff. Yeah. But then, many years ago, I walked through these different processes, and it actually works.
Yeah.
And the key thing here is once you do your ritual, then you can't keep focusing on it when the thoughts pop into your head. The same way is when you do your prayer ritual. You pray, or however you do your talking to the creator or the universe, or meditate, whatever it is that you do, right? When you pray and say, God, help me with this, and then when you finish your prayer, if you continuously focusing on that negativity, then you're not even trusting that the creator is going to help you to deal with a certain thing because you surrendered something to the Creator. You know, when you said, please help me with this, now you just gave it to the Spirit, help me with this. But then when you start focusing on it and worrying about it, you just took it back. You know, but that's okay. Just recognize when you take it back so that you can surrender it again. Like for people who smoke, you know, or trying to get rid of a bad habit, and they say, never stop quitting. You know, when you start up again, just remember, oh, gotta quit again, gotta surrender, I took it back.
You don't really want to quit.
Yeah.
Because when you get to a point where you don't want to do something anymore, then you'll give it up.
That's that dark night of the soul.
Yeah, because
Yes.
you don't want to, you at the end of that, just that behavior. It's like, I'm tired.
No more.
When you get tired, that's when the shift happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always remember that if you should ever find yourself in the dark night of the soul, you are just a prayer away from stepping into the light. Surrender the things in your life that cause you distress. Surrender your fears, worries, anger, and sadness. When you let go and let God, that is when the shift happens. It's time to become a greater version of yourself. Exercise your power of choice and choose to move forward. Choose to heal. Choose life, peace, and love. Check out Goddess's pocket-sized book entitled The Book of Wisdom. It's a 40-page powerful book of affirmations that will assist you on your journey. Order by email at goddessgoddess@yahoo.com. That's GODDESSGODIS@yahoo.com. Also, my book and workbook are available on Amazon. This powerful duo will help you to reprogram your brain to bring you what you want in life. My book is entitled, I Rewired My Brain, My Journey to Freedom. And the workbook is entitled, I'm Rewiring My Brain, My Journey to Freedom. Thank you for listening. And if you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, then please subscribe so that you can be aware of all of the videos that I've already posted and ones that I will continue to post on how to become the highest version of yourself.